Justin, I am responding to your paper one and giving you some ideas for revision. Okay, the evolution of pharmacies. Excuse me. Over the last 200 years, the pharmaceutical industry has undergone multiple metamorphoses as they strive to revolutionize the medicine-making field. From Europe to the United States, the pharmaceutical industry has played a huge role in their development and structure. The pharmaceutical industry has played a huge role in Europe and America's structure. Often not recognized, the pharmaceutical industry has been involved in almost every major event in the last 200 years. From the creation of the first pharmaceutical labs in the 19th century to the production of penicillin in the 1920s and to the resurgence of private pharmaceutical compounding labs in the 2000s, the pharmaceutical industry is one of the oldest industries in the world. Cool. Maybe that one sentence is just not one you need. One about Europe to the United States, because I was stumbling over that a little. Okay, to truly start at the beginning, introductions are so hard. To truly start at the beginning of the pharmaceutical industry, one must look much further back in time than the 19th century. In fact, the direct ancestor of the modern-day pharmaceutical labs were the apothecaries that have been around since ancient times. One of the first apothecaries to make the switch from being a regular apothecary to a full-on pharmaceutical laboratory was Merck in the 1840s. Wow, Merck is old. From this, many other apothecaries across Europe, and they were in Europe, followed suit. I think it'd be good to mention what country they were in. Like, just from the name, I'm like, maybe they're in Germany. German people are pretty precise. It seemed like they might be the ones who get into something as precise as pharmaceutical creation. But anyway, okay. From this, other apothecaries across Europe followed suit, and soon the abundance of pharmaceutical companies could be found in Germany, France, England, Switzerland, and the United States. At this point, I'm wondering, what's the difference between an apothecary and a pharmaceutical company? I think you definitely need to explain that. Okay. I mean, I have some theories, but soon after their inception, the pharmaceutical labs started to become partnered with the academic labs around this time. Together they found new ways to combat disease-causing organisms and developed antibodies and dyes. Eventually, their partnership heralded the way for more vaccines and medicines to be discovered, such as aspirin in 1897. However, in the 20th century, the pharmaceutical industry started to relocate their factories to a new and upcoming world power, America. I had Sam Eagle in the presentation earlier this week. It's the Muppet who loves America. Okay. And I think what's in there is the title of your source, which looks kind of weird, but maybe that is the real title. Online titles can be weird. Okay, like in Europe, the American pharmacies also worked hand in hand with other medical labs and eventually made a bountiful trade together. They made a trade together? They built an industry together, maybe? You have really quite a confident writing voice, so I am going to kind of pick at some things that I just think could be smoother. Unlike in Europe, the general populace held a deep mistrust of apothecaries, the pharmacies of the time. In the early 1800s, as they were not as established in the New World. Oh my God. Okay. Sorry. Personal response. Like in Europe, they eventually would trade together. Unlike in Europe, they held a deep mistrust of apothecaries. I think I would take out the pharmacies of the time. Again, I think it'd be good to define apothecary versus pharmacy, like right before you get into this, and then you don't have to talk about it anymore. Okay, people would buy their medicine from overseas in dried blocks or as part of a kit and would use medicine as needed. Oh, I bet they did. However, the general populace eventually started to distrust the medicinal kits from overseas as they were generally very inconsistent. Well, I bet they were, with zero regulation. I would assume at that point, pretty much zero regulation on any of this stuff. Dimich writes, superstitious remedies found in 16th century and 17th century medicine kits were no longer common by the 1770s. However, concerns about variation in kits. Okay, so superstitious remedies. Oh boy, I'm dying to know more about that, but I don't think you're going to cover that. That's okay. Have a concern about variation in kits, worries about the compounding of drugs on the American frontier, and the desire of pharmacists in the nascent pharmaceutical industry to demonstrate independence from Europe to spur the development of the first United States pharmacopoeia. Is that how you say it? I think so. Published in 1820. Cool. You had 2 words I love in there. Nascent. Isn't that a beautiful word? Nascent. Okay. But seriously, hope to develop independence from Europe. Okay, you use the word compounding of drugs, which I think means like the putting them together so they work. But, you know, I'm not a pharmacist, so you may not need to explain that. So they publish this thing. Your name of your source, that Damrich 65, should go outside of the quotes because that's not part of what you're quoting. Those aren't exact words from the source. I mean, I guess they kind of are, but no. Okay, to overcome this, more people started to rely on their local pharmacies. To overcome what? To overcome the independence from Europe, or to overcome the pharmacopoeia? Pharmacopoeia. I like that word too. Rely on their local pharmacies to provide the same services, and so the pharmaceutical industry started to flourish. But be that as it may, the industry would not start to boom. Yeah, I think there's some sense of straying from what you were saying. Like maybe you want to save the thing about the pharmacopoeia till later because you're talking a lot about ways that it doesn't work. Okay, it was due to Germans' great industrial power. Germany's great industrial power. The USA was forced to match the output of the Germans, and so the pharmaceutical field benefited from the conflict. Huh. There's always some of these freaky plus sides to having a horrible war that aren't worth it. But anyway, the growth, however, was nearly hard due to the Great Depression, but during the Second World War, the pharmaceutical industry boomed again due to the improvements in deep tank fermentation. Whoa, and other chemical processes. Deep tank fermentation? I'm dying to know about that too. Okay, from this boom, the first antibiotics were developed and pushed forward, and scientists maybe pushed forward a new wave of pharmacies that focused more on the mass production of products and marketing those products to a wider audience. This inevitably led to the amount of compounding done by pharmacists to sharply decline, so they had to look elsewhere to make a profit. Okay. This intense inevitability. Well, I don't think it was an inevitability, was it? Okay. Maybe you're saying, oh, yeah, I got you. This inevitably led to, okay, I think what's confusing me there is you say amount done to sharply decline, which is a lot of words, and I think all you're really saying is this inevitably led pharmacists to make less money from drugs or to do less, to not do as much compounding. That could be clear. Okay, sorry, time check, we're good. The emergence of retail pharmacies started a new trend in the pharmaceutical industry as more and more local pharmacies transitioned into retail, as more people came to them for commercial goods. The new field became so popular. What time period are we talking about here then? I think we need to check in and see like what year we're looking at. Because like you mentioned World War II a while ago, but the new field became so popular that in many pharmacy schools, courses tailored toward the logistics of running a retail pharmacy were added. That's crazy. This led to some issues within the pharmaceutical community. It seems as if the traditional role of pharmacists were becoming more and more blurred. However, the pharmacy field redefined themselves to be more akin to the more popular retail. Redefined to be more akin to. I don't know if akin to is exactly what you want there. Like akin to means suggests to me that they're making them more the same. And I don't think they're making them more the same. They're just like kind of adapting to this other thing. Okay, Eric and Meg's right. The answer in many ways was to increase front-end commercial interest through expanding soda fountains and other goods for purchase. Prescription dispensing was essential to the identity of the pharmacy, but was de-emphasized as part of the pharmacy's business. You've taught me this, and I enjoy having the knowledge. There may not be a page number, as there's so often now we don't have page numbers. But if there is one, throw it right there. Of course, the pharmacies still dispense pre-made medicines, but by 1960, the percentage of compounded prescriptions made at pharmacies was 5%, which had dropped to 1% in the 1970s. Further blurring the lines of what traditional pharmacies were able to do, many pharmacies started to step into the realm of patient care and would prescribe and dispense drugs within the same location. Which I guess they can't do now, but I guess they can prescribe them, right? And prescribe them in the sense that, like, they'll give you there's some stuff that's in that weird area of being over the counter, but you have to ask for it, and they have to have your information, like if you're buying stuff that can be used to make meth. Okay. This, of course, required more amendments to be made to the education of pharmacists. Beforehand, all pharmacists were required to have a baccalaureate degree, with a doctor of pharmacy being optional. Now, having a doctoral degree has become the new entry-level requirement. Oh, geez. As pharmacists started to take on more and more responsibilities. These responsibilities would quickly start to overlap with those of a regular doctor in the modern age. Sorry, I was just doing time check again. Jeez. I'll throw out this little bit since I have time. So another thing that's happened, not just in pharmacy, but in many fields that have any kind of academic, any training that's particularly connected to universities and colleges that do lots of different kinds of training. There's been like this arms race of pushing people to have more and more and more education. And there is discussion about, like, okay, do physical therapists or pharmacists or teachers or, whoever these people are, do they actually need those additional years of schooling? Or is this a way, it's one way that sometimes occupations will try and argue that they should be paid more because they had to have more education. It's a way that universities and colleges will get behind this and push for it for sure because they make money on that stuff. And it's also a way that, like, when people who are, I'll just say in general, people who are affluent and have lots of opportunities, when they achieve something, they often try to push the requirements higher and higher because, like, everybody's gotten to this level. So then they're like, well, I don't want to be on this level. I want to be, like, up here. So I'm not just this. Anyway, I just think that's a fascinating and weird thing that's happening. Last page. Modern pharmacists, while still performing the duties required them, hold many other responsibilities. In the 1990s, pharmacists started training programs to administer immunizations. Oh, yeah, I've gotten them there several times. At the beginning, the role of pharmacists to immunize patients was very limited. It was only allowed in a handful of states. However, by the end of 2010, all 50 states allowed pharmacists to administer immunizations in one form or another. Cool. I mean, it seems very safe to me, right? Like, I feel like, generally speaking, you just need to, for most vaccines, you just need to watch me and make sure I don't keel over dead. Go into anaphylactic shock. That's the main thing. Although I don't know anything about it, as you know. I'm really quite ignorant and just joking around. In the last decade, not much has changed within the role of pharmacists, the only major development being the expansion of their previous roles to encompass patient care and their roles as immunizers. The pharmaceutical field has gone through many different transformations, evolutions of their roles, servicing the public, from dispensing herbs and natural medicines in apothecaries to compounding and distributing drugs in labs to administering immunizations and patient care. The pharmaceutical field has grown through leaps and bounds rather than steadily increasing their sphere of influence. Whew, it's a long sentence. I mean, you handled it well, but it's long. The pharmaceutical field has very humble but vital origins and has now expanded to encompass a plethora of new practices and roles. Since you mentioned the thing about humble origins, it'd be nice for that to show up in your intro or maybe like your first paragraph after your intro to kind of make everything come together. And looking at your works cited, everything looks good to me. Okay, one other thing, again, just because I have time, that's not talked about in your paper, and you don't have to talk about it, but maybe you want to talk about it at some point in future papers, is the whole controversy about pharmacists dispensing birth control pills, or pharmacists dispensing, what do you call it, emergency contraception, morning after pills, and distributing medications that induce abortions. So just another wrinkle to maybe look at in the future.